Hi, and welcome to the Oikos Family Podcast. I'm Sonja Wood, and this is Season 7, Episode 2 of the podcast, whereby we are sharing our Oikos classics with you, one episode at a time. And today's episode is from Chapter 2 of White the Postboy. In Chapter 1, there were many, many lessons to learn from, I believe. And in Chapter 2, it's a much shorter chapter. So I would say it's a continuation of the lessons from Chapter 1. But this one, most specifically, I would say is about being very intentional about looking for the silver lining on those dark days. So that is the main focus, I would say, if I had to summarize what this chapter is all about. And so there you go. I do hope you will enjoy it.
Part 2. The Way to Plenty. Written in 1795, the year of scarcity. Tom White, as we have shown in the first part of this history, from an idle postboy had become a respectable farmer. God had blessed his industry, and he had prospered in the world. He was sober and temperate, and as the natural consequence, he was active and healthy. He was industrious and frugal, and he became prosperous in his circumstances. This is in the ordinary course of providence, but it is not a certain and necessary rule. God maketh his sun to shine on the just and on the unjust. A man who uses every honest means of thrift and industry will, in most cases, find success attend his labors. But still, the race is not always to the swift, nor the battle to the strong. God is sometimes pleased, for wise ends, to disappoint all the worldly hopes of the most upright man. His corn may be smitten by a blight, his barns may be consumed by fire, his cattle may die of distemper. And to these and other misfortunes he is as liable as the spendthrift or the knave. Success is the common reward of industry, but if it were its constant reward, the industrious would be tempted to look no further than the present state. They would lose one strong ground of their faith. It would set aside the scripture scheme. This world would then be looked on as a state of reward instead of a state of trial, and we should forget to look to a day of final retribution. Farmer White never took it into his head that because he paid his debts, worked early and late, and ate the bread of carefulness, he was therefore to come into no misfortune like other folks, but was to be free from the common trials and troubles of life. He knew that prosperity was far from being a sure mark of God's favour, and had read in good books, and especially in the Bible, of the great poverty and afflictions of the best of men. Though he was no great scholar, he had sense enough to observe that a time of public prosperity was not always a time of public virtue, and he thought that what was true of a whole nation might be true of one man. So the more he prospered, the more he prayed that prosperity might not corrupt his heart. And when he saw lately signs of public distress coming on, he was not half so much frightened as some others were, because he thought it might do us good in the long run, and he was in hopes that a little poverty might bring on a little penitence. The great grace he laboured after was that of a cheerful submission. He used to say that if the Lord's Prayer had only contained those 4 little words, "Thy will be done," it would be worth more than the biggest book in the world without them. Dr. Shepherd, the worthy pastor with whom the farmer's wife had formerly lived as housekeeper, was very fond of taking a walk with him about his grounds, and he used to say that he learned as much from the farmer as the farmer did from him. If the doctor happened to observe, "I'm afraid these long rains will spoil this fine piece of oats," the farmer would answer, "But then, sir, think how good it is for the grass." If the doctor feared the wheat would be but mediocre, the farmer was sure the rye would turn out well. When grass failed, he did not doubt but turnips would be plenty. Even for floods and inundations, he would find out some way to justify providence. "'Tis better," said he, "to have our lands a little overflowed, than that the springs should be dried up, and our cattle faint for lack of water. When the drought came, he thanked God that the season would be healthy. And high winds, which frightened others, he said served to clear the air. Whoever or whatever was wrong, he was always sure that Providence was in the right. And he used to say that a man with ever so small an income, if he had but frugality and temperance, and cut off all vain desires, and cast his care upon God, was richer than a lord who was tormented by vanity and covetousness. When he saw others in the wrong, he did not, however, abuse them for it, but took care to avoid the same fault. He had sense and spirit enough to break through many old but bad customs of his neighbours. If a thing is wrong in itself, said he one day to Farmer Hodges, a whole parish doing it can't make it right. And as to its being an old custom, why, if it be a good one, I like it the better for being old, because it has had the stamp of ages and the sanction of experience on its worth. But if it be old as well as bad, that is another reason for my trying to put an end to it, that we may not mislead our children as our fathers have misled us,